Maryland Terrapins, can this be the year? They've kind of been knocking on the door, 7-win seasons, 8-win seasons. They've been right there. Last year, they competed in head-to-head games against the Michigan Wolverines and against the Ohio State Buckeyes. They hung around against both of those Big Ten powers. When you look at Maryland for 2023, can it be the year of the Terrapin? The year of the turtle? Can they flex their muscle slowly but surely? What you need to know about Maryland, they've got one of the best returning quarterbacks in all of college football in Taulia Tagovailoa. But the one thing I want to see out of Taulia, I want to see more consistency. I want to see a quarterback that can step in and be consistently good, that can be consistently great. I think when I look at Taulia Tagovailoa, I see a quarterback that maybe he can go for 303, but he can come down and throw for 102 interceptions. I want to see more consistency out of the quarterback position at the University of Maryland this season. I think that's a big key to the success of Maryland, avoiding those turnover games that Taulia Tagovailoa has been prone to have in the past. But the good news is there is balance. There is balance on this team for the Maryland Terrapins. A couple of years ago, you were thought this is a team that likes to throw the ball around the yard, maybe not a ton of balance on the offensive side of the football. But now when you look at Maryland, they've got a stable of running backs, and they've got a guy in Roman Hemby that can break the big play at just about any time. And he's known to bust off big 40, 50, 60-yard runs in this Maryland offense going back to last season. You got Roman Hemby, you got like an Antoine Littleton, Colby McDonald, and I look at a guy like Ramon Brown, top 100 guy in the country a couple of years ago. I think he was the top player coming out of the state of Virginia. Look for Ramon Brown to be more involved in this team. They've got a stable of running backs that can all touch the football, that can all do really good to great things with the football. Now, they lose some things in their wide receiving core, but they do bring some things back. Deshaun Jones is back. And then you got to look at the transfer portal and what they did replenishing that wide receiver room as well. You look at Tyrese Chambers, you look at Caden Prather, I think from West Virginia is somebody to keep an eye on as well. This looks like a good group, and then you got to look at Corey Dyches at tight end. He's a tight end that can stretch the defense. He's a tight end that can do a lot of things. I think he'll be one of the very best tight ends in the entire Big Ten Conference this upcoming season. So there are players across this offense. Once again, offense is not something to worry about here for the University of Maryland. You look at the defense, and this is still, even though they lose guys like a Jacorian Bennett, like a Deontay Banks in the secondary, this is still a defense that you need to keep your eyes open for. Okay, because Jayshon Barham is one of the very best defenders in the Big Ten Conference. He is. He's an all Big Ten guy as a true freshman last year. Led the team in both sacks and tackles for loss. 4 sacks, 6.5 TFL for Jayshon Barham from the linebacker spot last season. You bring back some leading tacklers back in your secondary, Bo Bray, Dante Trader. Now, a big question, like I mentioned before, replacing Deontay Banks, replacing Jacorian Bennett. Jaquan Shepard is a 4-star transfer corner from Cincinnati, all AAC last season, so they look pretty good on the defensive side. This is a better defense than I think people realize, and then maybe people give credit for the Maryland Terrapins. Now, when you talk about can Maryland be a breakthrough team in 2023, you got to turn to the schedule. Okay, we know they got Michigan, we know they got Penn State, we know that they got Ohio State. They got 2 of those boys at home, and one of them lands in a sweet spot, baby. It lands in a sweet spot. Michigan. That Michigan football game is smack dab between the Penn State game, and it is smack dab between the Ohio State game for the Michigan Wolverines. So even if Michigan goes out there and they beat Penn State and they get the job done in an emotional victory, you got to come back. You got to go on the road, no less, to College Park before you got to play Ohio State. So that's smack dab at an interesting spot late in November when Michigan plays at Maryland. Penn State comes to College Park as well, and that's something to keep in mind. Can they beat a Big 3 team? Can they beat a Michigan? Can they beat a Penn State? Can they beat Ohio State? They came close with Ohio State last year. They were closer with Ohio State than I think they were on the road at Michigan. They kind of 2-score game, 1-score game, 2-score game, kind of going back and forth with that during the Michigan game. They need a perfect storm, I think, in order to beat one of these teams, even the two teams that they have, Michigan and Penn State, at their house at SECU Stadium. It's going to take the perfect storm. Talia Tagovailoa's got to have an awesome day. They got to have some big runs. Defense has to get into the backfield and wreak some havoc. Like, I just don't see them going back and forth and tick for tack even when the other team is having a good day. Got to force some turnovers. Those are the things that have to happen, I think, for the Maryland Terrapins to have a shot. But even if they lose those 3 games, they could still go 9-3. You look at their West Division draw, Illinois is at home, Northwestern's on the road, and Nebraska is on the road. They get 3 favorable draws out of the Big Ten West. Maryland is still going to be a very good team. They're going to be a great team this season. But they could still end up 9-3. They could still end up 9-4 just by virtue of where the schedule stands for the Maryland Terrapins. That's where things could land for the Terps this season. This is a good team. You need to keep your eye on them in those games against the Big Three. When you look at a team to watch out for that could consistently pull upsets throughout the season, I believe it's the Maryland Terrapins against some of those other Big Ten East powers. Can they make a New Year's Six bowl game? They're going to have to beat one of those Big Ten East powers. They're going to have to get it done against one of those teams in order for them to get to that level. But even an 8-4 season, even a 9-3 season for Maryland is still progress. It's still a step in the right direction for Mike Locksley, one of the most underrated coaches in the Big Ten Conference.